When a woman kneels down in prayer, heaven takes notice. When her lips release words shaped by faith, the very atmosphere around her begins to shift. She is not just speaking into the air, she is speaking into eternity. God does not simply hear her voice, He recognizes her spirit. He calls her not just a believer, not just a servant, but His daughter. Why? Because prayer is not only communication, it is identity. Praying woman steps into the presence of her Father with authority. She is not approaching as a stranger, but as a child who knows she has an inheritance. When she prays, she lays claim to promises written long before she was ever born. A praying woman is dangerous to the enemy. Why? Because she knows who she is and whose she is. Her tears are not wasted, they are seeds watered by heaven. Her cries are not ignored. They are collected in the hands of her Father. Her whispered prayers over her children, over her home, over her dreams, they echo in the throne room of God. You see, the world may call her weak, but heaven calls her warrior. The world may overlook her, but God calls her beloved. The world may label her ordinary. God calls her extraordinary. And every time she bends her knees, she reminds the enemy that her strength does not come from the earth. It comes from her Father. Daughter, you are chosen. Daughter, you are heard. Daughter, you are loved. That is why God calls a praying woman His daughter. Because in prayer, she reveals the DNA of heaven flowing through her spirit. She is covered, she is strengthened, and she is never alone. Prayer is not simply words spoken into silence. It is a declaration of who you are. Prayer is identity. When a woman lifts her heart to heaven, she is not just offering petitions. She is stepping into the truest expression of her being. She is not defined by her titles, her roles, her failures, or her struggles. She is defined by her connection to her Father in heaven. Prayer does not just reveal her needs, it reveals her name, and that name is daughter. When she bows her head, she is not bowing in defeat. She is bowing in recognition. Recognition that she belongs to someone greater, that her life is tethered to a source stronger than the storms around her. Prayer becomes the mirror where she sees herself the way heaven sees her, not broken, not lost, not forgotten, but chosen, covered, and loved. Enemy tries to tell her that she is weak, insignificant, overlooked. But when she prays, her spirit rises up and says, I am not forgotten. I am not abandoned. I am the daughter of the Most High God. Prayer is identity because it anchors her to her true origin. She was not created to live in fear. She was created to live in faith. She was not born to wander aimlessly. She was born to walk with purpose. Every time she prays, she reminds herself that her identity does not come from people's opinions, from the mistakes of her past, or even from the circumstances she faces. Identity comes from her Father's voice, and that voice calls her beloved. Think about it. When a woman prays over her children, she is not just hoping they will be blessed. She is declaring that they carry a divine covering. When she prays over her marriage, she is not just whispering into empty space, she is inviting God to stand in the middle of her covenant. When she prays over her dreams, she is not just speaking into the dark, she is unlocking doors that no man can shut. Is why prayer cannot be separated from her identity. It is the language of her spirit. Prayer does not change God's identity, it changes hers. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He does not waver, He does not shift. But when she prays, she begins to shift. She begins to transform into the image of the one she talks to. Her patience grows, her faith deepens, her peace multiplies. Prayer is the furnace where her character is refined, where her weaknesses are surrendered, where her strength is renewed. Without prayer, life begins to distort who she is. The world tells her she is not enough. Society places labels on her. People remind her of her past mistakes. When she prays, all those voices grow silent, and the voice of her Father rises above them all. That voice calls her chosen. That voice calls her valuable. Voice calls her daughter. And when she hears that voice, her identity becomes unshakable. Prayer is not just about asking. It is about aligning. It aligns her with heaven's vision for her life. It reminds her that she is not just walking through chaos, she is walking under covering. It reminds her that she is not just surviving, she is thriving under the watchful eye of her Father. In prayer, she finds her worth, her direction, her strength. In prayer, she discovers that she is never alone. A woman who prays is a woman who knows her identity. She may face storms, but she does not drown. She may be pressed on every side, but she does not break. She may cry tears in the midnight hour, but her tears water seeds of miracles she cannot yet see. Because prayer is not weakness, it is warfare. And in warfare, her identity as a daughter gives her authority to fight battles bigger than herself. The enemy fears a praying woman because her identity is not rooted in what she sees, but in what she believes. She may walk through fire. Prayers keep her from being consumed. She may face lions, but her prayers shut their mouths. She may walk through valleys. Her prayers remind her that she is walking with her shepherd. That is why the enemy tries to silence her, distract her, discourage her from prayer, because he knows that if she ever fully embraces prayer, she will fully embrace her identity. Prayer is identity because it makes her unshakable. She is not just a woman living day to day. She is a daughter walking with divine purpose. She is not just a voice lost in the noise. She is a daughter whose words echo in heaven. She is not just surviving the storms. She is a daughter who carries peace in the middle of chaos. So when she kneels to pray, she is standing tall in her true self. When she lifts her hands, she is lifting the banner of who she really is. When she cries out to her Father, she is not crying as a beggar. She is crying as a child who knows she belongs. Her prayer is not desperation. It is declaration. It is declaration of her belonging, her authority, her covering, her worth. That is why God calls her his daughter, not because of perfection, but because of connection, not because of flawless living, but because of faithful praying. Prayer makes her identity unshakable because it roots her in the truth that she is loved beyond measure, chosen without condition, and secured without question. Prayer is identity. And when a woman prays, she is not just touching heaven, she is discovering herself. She is not just reaching for answers. She is reclaiming her name. She is not just asking for blessings. She is stepping into the fullness of her inheritance. She is his daughter, and prayer is the proof. Prayer is not just a routine, not just a ritual, not just a habit you keep because you were told to. It is a force that shifts atmospheres. When a praying woman opens her mouth, heaven bends low to listen. The environment around her begins to transform. Prayer is not confined to a room, to a moment, or to words whispered in secret. Prayer has the power to move beyond her lips and enter the very air around her, changing what could not be changed, opening what was closed, breaking what was bound, and healing what was broken. You see, atmospheres carry weight. An atmosphere can make you feel heavy, defeated, or trapped. Prayer carries a greater weight, the weight of glory, the presence of the Almighty God. When prayer rises, the heaviness must lift, fear must flee, confusion must scatter, and peace must settle. A woman who prays does not just talk to God, she invites God to step into her atmosphere. And when he steps in, everything else must bow. Think about a room filled with worry. The tension can be felt, the anxiety can almost be touched. But when prayer is lifted, that same room shifts. Peace begins to settle in like a soft blanket. Hope begins to rise where despair once reigned. Light pierces through the darkness. Why? Because prayer changes the atmosphere. It ushers in a divine exchange, trading heaviness for joy, trading fear for faith, trading chaos for calm. Praying woman carries that power wherever she goes. When she walks into her home and lifts her voice in prayer, the atmosphere in her family begins to change. The spirit of strife has to leave. The spirit of confusion has to go. The spirit of division cannot stand where prayer has been lifted. When she walks into her workplace and whispers a prayer under her breath, the atmosphere shifts. Doors of favor begin to open. Protection begins to cover her steps. Wisdom begins to flow. When she intercedes for her community, her city, or her nation, the atmosphere of oppression and hopelessness begins to break and revival begins to stir. That is the hidden strength of prayer. It is not limited by walls or distance. A woman can be on her knees in her bedroom, and yet her prayer shifts the atmosphere in a hospital room miles away. She can whisper in secret, and her words thunder in the unseen. She may seem ordinary, but her prayers make her extraordinary. Because prayer does what human hands cannot do. It touches what human power cannot reach. Atmospheres matter. The enemy knows that if he can control the atmosphere of your home, your mind, your relationships, he can keep you bound. That's why he stirs up chaos, why he plants seeds of doubt, why he tries to weigh down your spirit with heaviness. Here is the truth. He cannot hold an atmosphere that has been saturated with prayer. When a woman prays, she does not just react to the enemy, she rearranges his plans. She does not just endure the atmosphere, she transforms it. She brings heaven down into the earth. Consider how Jesus prayed. Before he performed miracles, he shifted the atmosphere with prayer. Before he chose his disciples, he prayed. Before he went to the cross, he prayed. Why? Because he knew that prayer prepares the ground, it cultivates the soil, it makes the impossible possible. And when a daughter of God imitates that example, she too becomes an atmosphere shifter. Her presence is no longer neutral, it becomes charged with the presence of God. Prayer shifts the atmosphere internally as well. A woman can enter prayer full of fear, anxiety, and discouragement, but as she prays, the inner world begins to change. Peace takes the place of worry. Strength rises where weakness sat. Joy begins to bubble up where sorrow weighed her down. It is not always that her circumstances immediately change, but the atmosphere within her shifts, and that shift makes her unshakable. And let us not forget, prayer is not bound by volume. Some atmospheres shift with a shout, yes, but others shift with a whisper. Some atmospheres shift when a woman is on her knees in travail, and others shift when she simply says, "Father, I trust you." It is not the eloquence of the words, it is the authority of the relationship. She is his daughter, and her voice carries weight in heaven. Prayer shifts atmospheres because it invokes the presence of God, and nothing can remain the same in his presence. Chains fall in his presence. Yokes break in his presence. Mountains move in his presence. And when his presence fills the atmosphere, what was impossible suddenly becomes possible. The closed door begins to creak open. The heart hardened by pain begins to soften. The sickness that lingered begins to bow to healing. That is why the enemy fears a praying woman. He can handle her when she is silent, when she is distracted, when she is disconnected. But when she begins to pray, when she begins to call heaven into her atmosphere, his grip weakens. He cannot thrive in an atmosphere filled with worship. He cannot manipulate in an atmosphere filled with faith. He cannot win in an atmosphere filled with the presence of God. So, daughter, never underestimate the power of your prayer. Do not think your words are too small, your voice too quiet, your prayers too insignificant. Heaven hears. Atmospheres shift, lives change. Your prayer may not be seen, but it is felt. Your prayer may not be broadcasted, but it is echoed in eternity. Your prayer may not always bring immediate results, but it always brings immediate presence, and presence changes everything. Prayer shifts atmospheres because it shifts hearts, minds, homes, and nations. It is the unseen force that tilts the balance of battles, that pushes back the darkness, that opens the heavens. It is not just communication, it is transformation. And when a praying woman lifts her voice, the atmosphere around her cannot remain the same. Prayer shifts atmospheres. And when a woman prays, she does not just survive her environment, she transforms it. She does not just endure her season, she changes the climate. She does not just walk through life, she carries the very presence of God into every room she enters. And that presence is enough to heal, to deliver, to restore, and to renew. There is something sacred about the tears of a praying woman. To the world, tears may look like weakness, like fragility, the breaking of her soul. But in heaven's eyes, her tears are not wasted drops of pain. They are seeds planted in the soil of her destiny. Every tear she sheds in prayer carries weight, carries meaning, carries a promise. God does not ignore her tears, nor does he let them fall unnoticed. He gathers them, he treasures them, and he waters them with his presence until they bring forth a harvest greater than she ever imagined. Tears have always spoken a language beyond words. A woman may cry when she has no strength left to explain, when her voice shakes too much to pray, when her heart aches too deeply for her lips to form sentences. Yet those tears rise up like incense before the throne of God. They speak of her faith, her endurance, of her trust that, even in her brokenness, she is still his daughter. Her tears are not the end of her strength. They are the beginning of his. When a mother weeps over her children, those tears are seeds planted into their future. They may not see her prayers, they may not hear her cries in the midnight hour, but heaven records every tear. And one day, those tears break forth as protection, as guidance, as mercy over their lives. When a woman weeps over her marriage, her tears water the ground for restoration, for healing, for reconciliation. When she weeps over her calling, her tears soften the soil of her own heart, preparing her to carry the weight of the destiny that God has placed on her shoulders. Her tears are not wasted because tears are powerful in the hands of God. Think of Hannah in the temple pouring out her soul before the Lord. Her tears were not ignored. They were seeds of a son, Samuel, who would become one of the greatest prophets in Israel's history. Think of Mary at the feet of Jesus, her tears washing his feet, picture of both worship and surrender. Those tears were seeds of devotion that Jesus himself honored. And think of the weeping women at the tomb of Jesus. They thought their tears were falling in a loss. Those very tears watered the soil of the greatest resurrection the world would ever know. This is why the enemy fears the tears of a praying woman. He sees them as weakness, but he underestimates their power. He forgets that tears are not just emotional, they are spiritual. Tears release burdens, but they also release breakthroughs. Tears empty her heart of despair, but they also make room for fresh hope to enter. What looks like breaking is actually planting. What looks like falling apart is actually laying foundations. What looks like defeat is actually preparation for victory. Her tears are seeds because they carry expectation. No farmer plants a seed and walks away hopeless. Farmer plants knowing that rain will come, that time will pass, and that harvest will rise. Likewise, when her tears fall in prayer, she is planting into the unseen with faith that God will bring forth something beautiful in due season. She may not know when or how, but she knows who. The one who sees in secret will reward openly. Her tears are seeds of compassion as well. Every time she cries for someone else, for a hurting friend, for a broken family member, for a nation in turmoil, those tears are intercession. They move the heart of God because they reflect his own heart. He is near to the brokenhearted, and when she allows her heart to break for what breaks his, her tears water the soil of revival, restoration, healing not just for her, but for those around her. Tears also have the power to cleanse. Sometimes she has carried pain so long that it hardens her spirit. When the tears flow, it is as if God himself is washing her soul, softening the hardened places, healing the hidden wounds. Tears water the garden of her spirit so that new life can bloom. Without those tears, the soil would remain dry and cracked, unable to carry fruit. With tears, the ground becomes fertile for miracles. And here is the promise: the harvest of her tears will always be greater than the pain that produced them. Scripture declares that those who sow in tears will reap in joy. That means her tears are not wasted. They are an investment. She may sow them in sorrow, but she will reap them in laughter. She may sow them in nights of weeping, but she will reap them in mornings of dancing. Every tear is a seed of joy waiting to bloom. So, woman of God, never despise your tears. Do not think they make you weak, fragile, or small. Your tears are your testimony that you are still standing, still fighting, still believing. Your tears are your offering, your worship, your declaration that even in your pain, you trust your Father. And he, in turn, honors your tears by turning them into miracles. Her tears are seeds of legacy. Generations yet unborn will walk in blessings watered by the tears she sheds today. Her grandchildren may never see the tears she cried. They will walk in the freedom those tears purchased. Her community may never know how many nights she prayed and cried, but they will live in the revival those tears released. Her tears reach farther than her lifetime. They echo through eternity. And so her tears are not the end of her story. They are the beginning of her harvest. She may cry today, but joy is on the way. She may weep in this season. A new season is coming where her laughter will be louder than her pain. Her tears may feel like breaking, but heaven says they are planting. Her tears may feel like loss, but heaven says they are gain. Her tears are seeds, and seeds always grow when surrendered to God. They may grow slowly, they may grow invisibly, but they will grow. And when they do, the harvest will be greater than she ever dreamed, more beautiful than she ever imagined, powerful than she ever prayed, because God wastes nothing, not her words, not her prayers, not her tears. To the world, she may look ordinary. To people, she may seem like just another woman living her life, carrying responsibilities, juggling her family, working hard, and pushing through her struggles. They may see her smile and assume her life is easy. They may see her tears and assume she is fragile. They may see her quietness and assume she is weak. Heaven does not see what man sees. Heaven sees her differently. Heaven sees her as a warrior. A warrior is not defined by the absence of battle, by the strength to endure it. A warrior is not recognized because life was easy, but because she fought through storms that could have destroyed her. And every time she bends her knees in prayer, every time she lifts her hands in worship, every time she refuses to give up, even when life presses hard against her, she is proving what heaven already knows. She is a warrior. Heaven does not call her a warrior because she never cries. Heaven calls her a warrior because even after the tears fall, she gets back up. Heaven does not call her a warrior because she has never been wounded. Heaven calls her a warrior because she wears her scars like armor, proof that she has survived battles designed to kill her. Heaven does not call her a warrior because she never feels afraid. Heaven calls her a warrior because she chooses faith even in the face of fear. She is a warrior not because she is perfect, but because she is persistent. She may be tired, but she keeps praying. She may be weary, but she keeps believing. She may feel alone, but she knows she is never abandoned. And every time the enemy whispers, "You can't," her spirit rises and declares, "With God, I can." That is the spirit of a warrior. A warrior does not run from the fight. She runs to her Father, who strengthens her for the fight. She understands that her weapons are not carnal. They are spiritual. Her weapon is her prayer, her praise, her faith, her endurance. She knows that no matter how fierce the storm, no matter how loud the enemy, power does not come from herself. It comes from the one who called her. That is why she is victorious, not by her might, but by his spirit. Heaven sees her as a warrior because she does not fight for herself alone. She fights for her family when she prays over her children in the midnight hours. She fights for her marriage when she covers it with intercession. She fights for her community when she lifts up her voice for justice, peace, and revival. She fights for generations yet unborn when she stands in faith, breaking generational curses and planting seeds of blessing. Her fight is not selfish, it is legacy. And make no mistake, the battles she fights are real. There are days when the weight is heavy, when the enemy comes in like a flood, when she feels surrounded on every side. But heaven sees what the enemy forgets. She is surrounded too, not by defeat, by divine armies. Just as Elisha prayed for his servant and his eyes were open to see the hills filled with horses and chariots of fire, heaven sees her covered by protection greater than her opposition. That's why she can keep fighting even when it looks impossible. Calls her a warrior because she refuses to surrender her faith. The enemy may strike at her mind with lies, but she puts on the helmet of salvation. He may try to pierce her heart with despair, but she guards it with the breastplate of righteousness. He may come against her with weapons of discouragement. She lifts the shield of faith. And when she opens her mouth to declare the word of God, she wields the sword of the Spirit with power that makes darkness tremble. Warriors are not made in times of comfort. They are forged in fire. Heaven has watched her walk through fire without being consumed, walk through floods without drowning, walk through heartbreak without losing her hope. Heaven has seen her rise from ashes stronger than before. Heaven has seen her worship with broken pieces and still call God faithful. Heaven has seen her forgive when she had every reason to hate, love when she had every reason to close her heart, and give when she had every reason to hold back. That is the mark of a warrior. And here is the truth. She may not see herself the way heaven does. She may look in the mirror and only see her flaws, her mistakes, her shortcomings. She may compare herself to others and feel small. She may question if she is doing enough, being enough, achieving enough. Heaven silences those lies with one name, warrior. Heaven says, daughter, you are stronger than you think. You are braver than you realize. You are more powerful than you know. Because I, your father, have clothed you in strength, and I call you my warrior. This is why the enemy cannot defeat her. He can bruise her, but he cannot break her. He can delay her, but he cannot deny her. He can attack her, but he cannot destroy her. Because she is not fighting in her own power. She is fighting in the name of the Lord. She is backed by heaven, and heaven has already declared her victory. Heaven sees her as a warrior, even in the ordinary moments. When she gets up in the morning to face another day, when she shows up for her family, when she pushes through fatigue, when she carries responsibilities others don't even notice, heaven sees her strength. It is not always the loud battles that prove her warrior spirit. Sometimes it is the quiet endurance, the silent faith, the hidden perseverance. Warriors are not just seen on battlefields, they are seen in everyday faithfulness. Every warrior has a crown. Every battle she has fought, every tear she has shed, every scar she has carried, it is all leading to a day when her victory will be complete, when her faith will be rewarded. Her father will place a crown on her head and say, well done, my warrior daughter. So let her never forget who she is. She may feel overlooked. Heaven sees her. She may feel small, but heaven calls her mighty. She may feel weak, but heaven knows she is strong. She may feel like giving up. Heaven has already declared she will overcome because heaven sees her as a warrior, and heaven is never wrong. When heaven looks at a praying woman, does not see her as ordinary. Heaven sees her as extraordinary, marked, chosen, and set apart. She carries heaven's DNA. That means she is not just living on earth, she is a daughter of eternity. Her life is not random, her steps are not accidental, her existence is not by chance. She has been woven together by the hand of the Almighty, infused with His Spirit, and imprinted with His likeness. Everywhere she goes, she carries evidence of the one who created her. Heaven's DNA is not about biology, it is about identity. It is about knowing that her bloodline may connect her to a family, a culture, a nation, but her spirit connects her to heaven. She is the daughter of the King, which means royalty runs in her veins. Authority rests in her voice. Victory sits on her shoulders. She is not powerless, no matter how she feels, because she carries within her the very imprint of her Father. This is why she cannot be defined by the limitations people place on her. People may call her weak. Heaven calls her strong. People may call her broken, but heaven calls her whole. People may call her insignificant, but heaven calls her chosen. She carries heaven's DNA, and that means she carries power greater than her pain, purpose greater than her past, and destiny greater than her doubts. When she prays, her DNA responds to heaven's call. Something deep within her resonates with eternity. Her spirit rises up in agreement with the Spirit of God. And suddenly she is reminded of who she is. She is not begging as an orphan. She is asking as a daughter. She is not wandering without identity. She is walking in inheritance. She is not simply surviving. She is thriving under the covering of her Father's name. That is why prayer is not just communication for her. It is a reunion. It is heaven recognizing heaven. It is her Father recognizing His own imprint within her. She carries heaven's DNA, and that means she carries resilience. Life may knock her down, but it cannot keep her down. Storms may surround her. They cannot drown her. The enemy may fight her, but he cannot defeat her. Why? Because her DNA carries the blueprint of victory. She was not created to be overcome. She was created to overcome. Every battle she survives is proof of the power inside her. Every trial she endures is a testimony that what she carries cannot be destroyed. Heaven's DNA also means she carries compassion. The heart of her Father beats within her. That's why she prays for her children, for her loved ones, for her community, for her nation. That's why she cannot ignore the hurt nor the broken, because she carries the same love that sent Jesus to the cross. Her prayers are not selfish, they are sacrificial. Her tears are not only for herself, they are intercession for those around her. She carries heaven's heartbeat. It pulses through her words, her actions, her prayers. When she walks into a room, she brings heaven with her. Darkness may try to linger, but it cannot stay. Confusion may try to dominate, but peace begins to settle. Fear may try to rise, but faith begins to fill the atmosphere. She may not even realize it. Her presence shifts things because she carries the presence of the one who lives inside her. Her DNA carries heaven's light. That light cannot be hidden. It shines through her smile, through her endurance, through her faith. And here is the beautiful truth. Heaven's DNA makes her unstoppable. She may not be the loudest voice, but her words carry weight. She may not have the biggest platform, but her influence carries impact. She may not always feel seen, but she is never unseen in heaven's eyes. She is a carrier of God's presence, vessel of his spirit, a daughter marked with his name. That identity cannot be stripped by failure, by loss, or by the opinions of others. Heaven's DNA also means she carries inheritance. That means she is not empty-handed. She has promises. Promises of peace, promises of provision, promises of purpose, promises of protection. She may be waiting to see them unfold, but in her DNA, they are already written. The enemy cannot cancel what God has encoded within her. Every time she prays, she activates her inheritance, calling forth what has already been placed inside her. This DNA is also generational. The seeds she plants in prayer today will bloom in the lives of her children tomorrow. Her grandchildren will walk in blessings she prayed into existence. Her tears water soil that future generations will harvest from. She may not live to see it all. Heaven's DNA is eternal. It continues long after she is gone, echoing through her bloodline, releasing blessings instead of curses, favor instead of failure, destiny instead of destruction. And though she may forget her own strength at times, heaven never does. Heaven sees her as Mark, anointed and unstoppable. Heaven reminds her, daughter, you carry my name, you carry my likeness, you carry my DNA. When she feels weak, heaven whispers, you are strong. When she feels empty, heaven declares, you are full. When she feels lost, heaven calls, you are found. Her identity is not in her mistakes, not in her struggles, not in her past. It is in her DNA. This is why she is dangerous to the enemy. He can attack her mind, but he cannot erase her identity. He can wound her heart, but he cannot undo her calling. He can try to silence her. He cannot strip her voice of its authority because her DNA carries heaven's stamp and no weapon formed against her can prosper. So when she prays, she must pray with confidence. When she worships, she must worship with boldness. When she walks, she must walk with assurance. She is not just any woman, she is a daughter carrying heaven's DNA. She has divine authority, divine inheritance, divine resilience, and divine destiny. She carries within her the reflection of her Father, and the world around her cannot remain the same because of it. She carries heaven's DNA. That is why she rises when life tries to crush her. That is why she shines when darkness surrounds her. That is why she overcomes when battles rage against her. She is not ordinary. She is not forgotten. She is not powerless. She is chosen, marked, and filled with the imprint of heaven itself. Nothing on earth or in hell can take that away.